Hey everyone, it's Chris, and we are back with another tutorial in our Tetris tutorial series. And um, unless someone has a special request, I think this is going to be our last Tetris tutorial. And I'm actually kind of excited about that because, and you know, maybe a little sad at the same time because we're concluding a series. So I'm a little excited because that means we're going to get to start a new series. And I'll have more info on that for you guys next week because hopefully I will be uploading my first tutorial next week of the new series. Um, and hope you guys will enjoy that one as well. So today what we're going to do is we're going to actually add a system menu, or sorry, a game menu to our already awesome game, right? So every game needs a menu, and just because you know there are some settings that you want to be able to allow the user to control, and a menu basically is the starting point of basically any game. So what we're going to do first to create our menu is of course we're going to create a new scene, because what we've got right now is if we look in our scenes folder, we've got a game over scene and we've got a level scene. The level scene is our actual game. The game over scene is what we hit when we're dead, when the game is over. So the one that's missing here is we need a game menu, right? So what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and go to game object, or sorry, go to file and click on new scene. All right. Now it didn't ask you for a file name, blah blah blah. Okay, so that I think maybe Unity should change that. Maybe when you do new scene, it should go ahead and ask you where you want to save it, and automatically save that scene for you, but it doesn't do that. So when you click new scene, it's kind of like you're in an untitled document, kind of like in Word or any of the other editors or whatever. So what we'll do is we'll go to File and Save Scene As. And what that'll do is get us into our structure here, our folder structure. We're going to select the scenes folder, okay? Make sure we stay consistent with where we save our stuff. And we're going to call this one game menu, okay? I'll hit save. All right. So the one thing that we're going to need in our scene right away is going to be a canvas to basically create our menu with. So we'll do that. We'll do game object and UI, and then we'll go canvas. All right. And the first thing I always like to do here is adjust this canvas to our reference resolution. So we'll go to our canvas scaler here, and we're going to scale with screen size, and our reference resolution is going to be 1920 by 1080. Okay. And so that'll give us the same reference resolution that we're using for our HUD menu in our level scene and the game over scene as well. So let's start with something simple and add a text object, and what that text object is going to be is the actual title of the game. All right. So first, let's center this on the X position 0. We're also going to center it here for the alignment, the paragraph stuff, right? So we go paragraph alignment, that's going to be centered, and we're going to also put it in the middle. And then let's make this a little bigger. So we're going to change the width. Let's do like 600, or let's go with 800. And let's do maybe 100 for the height. That looks good. And I'm going to call this one Tetris Clone. And let's increase the font size so you can actually see it. Alright. Go ahead and go up here to our transform tool so we can move it up. And so we'll put it up here. Alright. Okay, so we got a title. So what else do we need? We need a button to actually play the game. So let's go ahead and add that in. So we'll do UI button. And scroll down. So our button's kind of small, so let's go ahead and increase the width and height of that. We also want to center it, so let's go ahead and put it at 0 on the x-axis. And then we're going to let's see here, change the width. Let's go with like 200, or let's do 300, and maybe 70 for the height, right? And let's go ahead and edit our text property. Change this to play. Change the font size. Okay. Alright, so now we got a button. Actually, you know, there's a really cool feature here in our button. If we go to text, we can actually click on best fit, and that will size our font to actually fit nicely into our button. Okay, so that actually looks a little better than that big font that I was using. Alright, so we've got a play button. So in order to play our game, our button has to have an action. And the actions for buttons are defined here in the onClick handler. And as you can see right now, the list is empty. So we need to add actually an actual action here. So what we do is we click the plus button. All right. So what happens is we get this action item here that we can manipulate. So the way that this works is we have to assign a game object to this. All right. Now that game object has to have a script component, and that script component has to have a function that we're going to select here that is going to be executed when this button is clicked. Okay. So what we need to do then is we'll need to go ahead and start with actually creating a script. Okay. And this script is going to be called, how about game menu, right? And then in here in our hierarchy, let's go ahead and create an empty, and let's call this game menu script, right? And then we'll go ahead and take our game menu script and drag it over to the inspector, all right, to add it as a component to our game menu script to our game menu script game object. Okay. Then we'll go back to our button, and we're gonna go ahead and, you know what? First, yeah, let's go ahead. Let's assign that game object that we just created. It's here, game object menu script. Okay, so now that we've got our game menu script assigned, what we're gonna need to do is we need to actually go into our game menu script, and we need to create a method that is going to be called when we want to play our game. So let's call this method play game. All right. Okay. So to load a scene from another scene, it's very simple. We just use the application class. We use a method called load level. Okay. And load level takes either an index with it as an integer, or we can pass it a string, which is going to be the name of the scene. So we're going to use the name of the scene. All right. So we're going to say level, because that is the name of the scene that we want to load. And you can look at that. All right, let's save this. If we go in our scenes folder, you'll see that our game, the scene that we run our game in, is called level. Okay. Now there's one more thing we got to do, is we actually have to go into our build settings here. So we go to File and Build Settings, and we have to add the game menu scene that we just created to our scenes and build. Okay, so we'll go ahead and add that in here, and we're going to rearrange that to be the first scene that loads when the game starts. Okay, so, and as you can see, we've got these index numbers here, 0, 1, and 2. Now if we wanted to load the level scene by using the index instead of the name, we would have just passed in the number 1. But be careful with this, because if we've got game over here, then game over becomes index 1 and level becomes index 2. And this is why I actually like to use names instead of indexes, because these can be easily rearranged without even thinking about it. And then you're wondering all day, why is the game over scene loading and not the level scene? So, and especially with bigger projects. So, you know, when you're having a big game, when you're creating one that's got like 20 levels, you could just name the scenes level 1, level 2, level 3, and then call them by name. It would be much easier that way. Alright, so we can close the build settings dialog, and let's go ahead and click the play button here. And here's our menu. Okay, so we click play, and absolutely nothing happens. And that is because We actually forgot. We assigned our game menu script game object to our on-click event handler, but we never selected which function we actually want to run. So we go here, we click this button, and then we go to our game menu game object, and then we're actually going to look for, and it's not in here. Why is it not in here? Well, I can tell you right now, I know what I forgot, and that is to make it a public method. Okay? So we need to go back in here, and we need to create this play game method as a public method, okay, so that it's accessible in the inspector. So we're going to go back in here, click on our button again, and then back here on the on-click event handler, we're going to click on no function, go to game menu, and now we've got our play game method in here. All right, that makes sense? Good. Let's click play, and here we're going to click the play button. And there's our game. Okay. Alright. So, what can we do with this menu? Well, one of you asked me a couple weeks ago, can we add a slider to select which level we want the game to start at? And I thought that that would probably be the best thing to show you guys how to do on a menu, and once you get the hang of the slider, you can pretty much add anything else you want. The slider is probably the most complicated UI element to set up and configure, so you know, with that in mind, and actually it being the most complicated doesn't even make sense because it's actually not that difficult. Once you actually see what's involved, you'll get the hang of it and be adding sliders and Alright, so let's go ahead and add a slider component, and the way we do that is we just go to Game Object, UI, and then click on Slider. Alright, and this is a little small, so what we're going to do in this case, we're going to just adjust the scale of the slider, and I think if we go 3 on the X and 3 on the Y, okay, that looks pretty good. Alright, so we've got a couple of things here that we can configure on our slider, because this is going to be a level selection slider, right? So we don't want to select level 5.15 or point whatever. We want this thing to snap to like level 0, level 1, level 2, level 3. We want it to stop when it gets to a whole number. Okay. Cool thing is this slider already has a property that we can use that for. So whole numbers, we just check that. And what we need to do is we need to set our max value to 9, because that's our max level, right? And we're going to set our value where the slider starts at to 0. So now, if we click play, when we slide this slider, it's going to snap to only whole numbers. Okay, so and if you look at the right here, at the value in the inspector, you can see as I'm sliding the slider, the value changes. Okay, so all the way to 9. All right, so that's a good start. So now we want to very quickly we want to indicate what this slider's for. So we're going to add 2 text boxes. One, let's go ahead and add text. And we're going to move that up a little bit, and we're going to make that bigger as well. So let's go with 400. That looks good. And maybe 50 in the height. Let's go with 70. And we'll call this level. Also centered, middle. Make the font bigger. Okay. And we're going to duplicate. Oops. I'm going to select level, duplicate it, and then this one is going to indicate which level the slider's currently at. Okay, so we've got our text and then our actual dynamic text object that's going to change as the slider changes. Well, that's going to be fun. How do we do that? Let's see here. First, let's give this a name. Let's call it how about level text? Alright, so what we want to do is anytime this slider changes, okay, we want to increment this number to the current. We want it to equal the actual value of what the slider is. So if the slider, is at level 9, we want this to tell us that we're at level 9, because we don't want our players to just try and guess where they're at. I guess they could 0, 1, 2. Okay, but you get my point. This is easier. So how do we tie these two together? Well, luckily for us, there is in our slider, we've got an onValue changed event handler, okay? And this goes basically the same thing as we did for the button, all right? So what we have to do is we have to create a method that gets called every time this value is changed, all right? So the thing about that is when the value is changed, it's going to pass in a parameter for us, and it's going to tell us what that value is, okay, what the current value is. So let's go into our game menu script, and let's go ahead and create a public method, all right, and let's call it changed value. And we need to accept a float parameter, and let's just call this value, okay? We could have called that variable whatever we wanted, by the way, but we need to accept a float parameter, and that float parameter is going to tell us what the current value is, all right? And we're storing that value in a variable named value. So what do we want to do with this value? Well, here's we need to somehow grab our level text, and we need to assign this value to our level text object. So in order to do that, we need to have a reference to our level text object, and in order to have that, we need to create a variable, a text type. So we need to import UnityEngine.ui, okay? Then we're going to go in here, and we're going to say public text level text, okay? And by default, we're going to set level text.text equal to 0, and that takes a string object. That's why we have to put that in quotes, okay? So when the game menu initializes, level text.text is set to 0. All right, we can actually get rid of this update method. We don't need it. Okay, so then anytime our value changes here, we want to update level text.text. All right, so the text property of our text game object. So we'll go level text.text equals value dot toString, okay, because we have to convert our float value into a string. And that should do it for us, okay? So now the only thing we have left to do is if we go to our game menu script, we need to assign the level text game object, which is this, to our variable, all right? So now that we've got that, we'll save it, and let's see, we're gonna go ahead and assign, yeah. All right, so click on the slider, and then from there we'll go and on the onValue changed event handler, we're gonna click add. I'm gonna select our game menu script game object, and then in our function we're gonna go to game menu, and we're gonna use dynamic float, okay? Keep in mind, if you look here, static parameters, you can use the changed value float, but nothing will ever happen. We need to actually use the dynamic float changed value, okay? Because that gets updated. So now if we click play, we move this slider, you can see that our level is updated to the value of our slider, okay? So now if we go to level 9 and we click play, we still start at level 0, and that's because we're not really setting anything. We're just, okay, playing with a slider, we're setting, okay, well, level equals whatever we set it to, but does that affect our actual game level? No, it does not. So what we need to do is we need to find a way to actually transfer that information to our level scene, okay, so that our game knows, hey, we're starting at this level. Okay, so the way that the best way to do this is we're going to add a couple of variables to our game script. Okay. Um, one of those is going to be a Boolean, and that is going to be called starting at level 0. Okay. And then the other one we're going to create is going to be an integer, and we're going to call this one starting level. All right. So the reason that I've created this starting at level 0 Boolean is because we need to actually know what level we're starting at. Because if you'll look at our update, let's see here. Update level. All right. So if you look at our update level method, you'll see that the current level is a calculated variable. Okay, it's not just set when the game starts and our level is increased and we increase our level. No, our current level is always dynamic, and it's determined by how many lines we've cleared divided by 10, because for every 10 lines we clear, we want to move up a level. So, let's say that we start our game at level 4 and we tell it, okay, well, current level's 4. Well, that's going to get changed as soon as this method runs, because it's going to say, oh, well, num lines cleared, which is 0, divided by 10, which is 0, and it's going to set our current level at 0. We don't want that. We want to be able to, if we select level 9, to play at level 9 until we've cleared enough lines to continue on to level 10. So that's why we need to know if we've started at level 0. Okay, because if we didn't start at level 0, then we've started at a different level, and we don't want this to happen. Okay, if we started at any other level other than 0, we do not want this to happen. All right, so in our update level, we're going to add an if statement, and we're going to say if, let's say current starting, if started at, no, what do we call that? Starting at level 0. Alright, so if starting at level 0 is true, okay, then we want to say current level equals num lines cleared divided by 10. Or in case starting at level 0 does not equal true, I'll just say equals false. Okay. And, okay, so if we're not starting at level 0, okay, and num lines cleared divided by 10 is greater than starting level, okay, then and only then do we want to do current level equals num lines cleared divided by 10. And let me get into this real quick. All right, so num lines cleared divided by 10. Obviously, that's going to equal what our current level should be. Okay, so if we've got 10 lines cleared and we divide that by 10, we get 1. All right. Now, if we start at level 1, then 1 is not greater than starting level, so we don't want to mess with this. If our num lines cleared is 20, we divide that by 10, we get 2. 2 is greater than our starting level, which was 1, so then we want this to start happening. All right. Starting level and starting at level 0 are actually going to be defined in our game menu class. All right, so what we want to do in here is we actually want to assign our starting level, okay, when our value is changed based on our slider's value. So we're going to set game dot starting level equal to the value of the slider, okay, the integer representation of that value. And then what else we want to do is in our play game, we want to set the starting from level 0 variable based on whether or not the starting level equals 0. So we go if game dot starting level equals 0, then we'll do game dot starting at level 0 equals true. Else we go game dot starting at level 0 equals false. All right. So if starting at level 0, if the starting level equals 0, which is set here every time the slider moves, then starting at level 0 is true. If it's any other value, 1 through 9, then the starting at level 0 will be false. Okay. So, and if that's false, then we're going to check this or part of the if statement and say, oh, it's false. And are the number of lines cleared divided by 10 greater than the starting level? Probably not, so let's not run this. And once they are, we are going to run this. All right. So now that we've got that all set up, we should be able to pick our starting level. Our game should start at the level. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to show you guys that we're going to have to do one more thing, but let me go ahead and jump into this and show you how this is going to work. All right, so let's go ahead and start at level 9. Click play. And you'll see that the Tetramino still falls like it is at level 0. So let's go ahead and just place that. And this as well. See, everything is still working like it's on level 0. In fact, our level still says that we're on level 0, which is completely incorrect, right? Because we started at level 9, clearly. Well, there's one thing that we forgot to do, and that is we need to actually go into our game. In our start method, we need to set our current level variable equal to the starting level. And we only do that in a start method because starting level is the value of the slider. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. Click play. Alright, let's go level 9, play. And you'll see that there's still something wrong that we need to change, because now if you look, our level says 9, but our piece is still falling at like a level 0 speed. So let's go ahead and move that down all the way. Oh, and now we got a piece falling at level 9 speed. So what is going on? What do we got to do to fix this? Alright, well, remember when we first started this, and in our Tetramino class, we basically set our fall speed only in the start method. Well, at the very beginning, our fall speed is our current level speed, which is 0. Okay, no matter what we do, that's always starting at 0. So what would be a better way is to actually create a method. Alright, let's call this update fall speed. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and set, alright, so we're going to go ahead and change this, okay, from a public float to a public static float, okay, fall speed, so that we can access it directly from the class. So we'll go back into Tetramino. We'll go ahead and say fall speed equals game dot fall speed. Alright, so we can get rid of this. In our update loop, we'll go ahead and click or add update fall speed. Oops. Okay. So now, okay, so let's go ahead and select level 9 and see if we can actually start our game at an actual level 9. So let's click play. And there we go. The piece is falling just like it should. We started at level 9, 0 lines. And everything looks like it is working perfectly. Now let's go ahead and so let's get a game over so we can see what's going on with our game over scene here. Alright, so our game over scene is pretty much blank. So let's let's add something to that. And first, let's go ahead and create another method in our game menu. So we'll go ahead and go public void launch game menu. Alright, and we're going to use application dot load level, and we're going to pass in game menu. Alright, so here what we'll do is we'll go to our game over scene. We'll save this one. There's nothing here, so let's go ahead and create a canvas. Canvas. And let's go ahead and change our canvas scaler to scale the screen at 1920 by 1080. Alright. Let's go ahead and add a button. And let's go ahead and change this button size to 300 by 70. I'll change the text to game menu. Change it to best fit. And then we're going to go back to our button, go down to our on-click event handler, click add. We need to create an empty here, right? Oops. Not inside there. Take it out. So that's game menu script. I'm going to go ahead and assign that same game menu script as the component to our game menu script empty. Actually, let's do that again. Alright, so let's go ahead and create an empty. Okay, and we'll call this game menu script, and we'll add our game menu script as a component here. We don't care about level text in this one. All we care about is going back to our button and then adding this game menu script game object, okay, and then selecting our launch game menu method. Alright, so from the game over scene, click game menu, goes back to the game menu, click play, plays our game. Alright. Alright everyone, that's it. Stay tuned for the next series. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys soon.